Hey everyone, Pastor George here with today's Bible study recap. And today in Bible study, we looked at Joshua 5, chapter 5, verses 1 through 12, which is the first Passover celebrated in the Holy Land after the Exodus. And so the reason I chose this is because in case you don't know, we're going through Passover passages during Lent, trying to see the attachment to these things because they are attached, right? Jesus' death and resurrection happen in the Passover week, right? The time around Passover. So it's important to see that connection, and Jesus is related explicitly to the Passover. So last Sunday we looked at Exodus 12, which is when the Passover is established during the plagues of Egypt. So we're fast forwarding through the Exodus part to when the Israelites arrive back to the Promised Land. They are led by Joshua. And the important thing to remember, we've talked about this before in my Through the Bible series, but Joshua in the book of Joshua is highlighted as the second Moses. So he is often repeating or doing things in order to call back to what was done in the Exodus. And it's kind of like, I don't want to say a reverse, but a reverse of the Exodus, where they've left Egypt and now they're arriving to this new place. So our text begins with the Amorites being scared of the Israelites, and this is important because the Israelites have just crossed over into the Promised Land, and they are God parted the water for them to go through. The Amorites hear about this; they're scared of them. Uses this common phrase of in the Old Testament, their hearts melted within them, which is a great line, I think. And that's important because the Israelites are going to need time to recover because of what they need to do now. So God tells Joshua that now the males among them are going to have to be circumcised. And this is because they have not been circumcised yet, and they're about to celebrate the Passover, and the Passover requires circumcision of men, right? And so they have to go into the land, and that has to happen. So it's a good thing their enemies are scared, or else they'll attack them while they're resting, right? Now, this is one of those moments in the book of Joshua that highlights the similarity between Moses and Joshua. Before Moses goes back into the land of the Egyptians, Egypt. I don't know why I said it that way. Before he goes into Egypt, he hasn't circumcised his son yet, and so his wife does it for him. And so this is kind of the reverse of that, right? They've entered into the land, and now this is happening. So why is this important, right? Well, besides the fact that it's required, like, why is it required for the Passover? So the reason circumcision is required is because it marks the men of the Israelites as being entered into the community. Circumcision was very different among the Israelites than it was practiced amongst other groups. Groups around the Israelites did practice it. The Canaanites, for example, the Egyptians, the Phoenicians did. And so it's not as though this is a unique thing that the Israelites do. The unique thing about it is when it's done. Usually circumcision was done, at least from my understanding, in the Egyptian context, when the man was older. Usually as a way of being ritually pure, but also a way of kind of becoming of age. So it kind of marked when you were first entered into that community and considered a full member of it. So that the fact that children are circumcised in the Hebrew context shows that children are important parts of the community and are brought in immediately and heirs to the promise. You know, we as Protestant, Presbyterian Christians pull in this theology when we practice baptism, right? We mark children as members of the community, even though they aren't adults yet or whatever, because we are taking this formula given in the Old Testament for doing that, right? We're the people of Israel. We still practice this, though in a different form now, right? I would say a more complete form. So that's why it has to be done. So that's why they are circumcised, right? And so they are waiting there to heal. And it says that God did this to get rid of the disgrace of Egypt, and people debate about what that might have done. It might have been the neglect of the covenant that was happening in Egypt because people weren't practicing the things they should have. Could have been slavery, right? Because now that this is like the final moment when they are marked as freed and entered into the land, that could be it. Could be the spiritual impurity. Could be people, mocking God, saying, "Oh, this could never happen," and this is kind of the marker that it has. This place is named Gilgal for the rolling away of the disgrace. So that's how it gets the name Gilgal, and it commemorates the deliverance of the people, and like what is a kind of a more full way of celebrating that than saying, "Hey, this is the first time we're celebrating this in the land that was promised out of Egypt." And then this is also the last time that they are given manna. So during the Exodus, God provided their food for them as they were in the wilderness. This is the last time they get that. And so they're not given it anymore, I should say. And so this is like a big moment because this is now we've arrived. We are no longer wilderness. We've arrived into our home. And so the meaning of this, right, attaching it to the importance of the Passover, is that it's the Passover is a way, it's a way of celebrating the present while remembering the past, right? It's the first, this instance is the first fulfillment of the covenant. So every time we celebrate Passover, Easter, right, we're not only celebrating that Jesus rose from the dead 2,000 years ago, and that was a fulfillment of God passing over our sin just as he passed over the sin of our spiritual ancestors in Egypt, right? Of course, all of that is true, and we do celebrate that. But we also celebrate how God continually does that for us today, and how much more true it is with every passing day of how amazing that is. So that's what this passage calls me to think about. Hopefully gives you something to think about as well. So that's what we talked about today. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your Wednesday, and I'll see you when I see you. Peace out.